So the first year that we took this over was standing corn stalks, and what we did is right after the corn was harvested, we planted cereal rye right into the corn stalks. And last year in 2019, then it was soybeans out here, obviously, and we drilled the soybeans right into it. And in that 1 year, we found noticeable differences in the nodulation versus our conventional till stuff, as how many nodules, just in 1 year, how much we were able to improve the soil health of this area. And then after we harvested the soybeans, we just left it, put the P and the K down last fall, late last fall, and we put the nitrogen on this spring for this corn crop. So just looking at it now, my biggest concern is the uniformity of the corn coming up. This field had no trash whippers on in front of the planter. It was just planted with the trash whippers up, and it did a fairly nice job.
So they can't hear me. Are you changing your nutrient management stuff at all yet?
So what we're doing now is we're looking at it. We had a grid sampled that was at 2.5 acre grids on this field, and finding out where our organic matter levels were at in the depletion, and finding out after 2 years we're already starting to drop the nitrogen value that we've been applying. This was historically for a corn crop was 180 pounds of N. This year's crop we've dropped it by 25 pounds of N already, and my hope is to be down to around that 130 to 140 pounds N in 2 years when this comes back to corn.
What did you do with your planter? Ask them what modifications did you do to this planter?
What modifications have you done with your planter to accomplish the no-till?
What we have in our planter is the 2020 system on the planter. We added the down pressure, the downforce on that. And so what we were doing was monitoring how much downforce we were putting on here. We were doing it roughly about 80 pounds of PSI when we first started out, but when we went back to see what our down pressure force was actually on the row, that was 300 pounds of PSI we were putting on that row, in which we found out the corn plant does not like that. They like to have 275 pounds of downforce or less, so then we dialed that back to 60 PSI on the tank for the downforce, and then we were right around that 260 pounds of downforce on the row, which then we were not creating compaction within the row, which really helped the corn out. So the roots, we weren't packing it right on the row.
And I know you did some work with your closing wheels. What did you have to do to get it to close your rows better?
Yeah, with that first, the crust that was on the field in the spring, and every field without it being tilled, is what I changed. I had the smooth packing wheels on the planter, and I've got a 7200 John Deere planter. We went to the copperhead row, which it's got serrated wheels, and then it was able to fracture the sidewalls, and that really made a difference of filling in and closing up around the seed, and that made a difference. We changed on both sides. And then also what we found out too, there was an extension finger on the planter that was an adaptation. And we'll show pictures of that too, but there's an extension that held that seed down into the furrow, at the bottom of the furrow. Without that taking the friction and the bouncing of the seed, that copperhead row can potentially get underneath that seed and throw it up out of the ground. So we rectified that by those extensions were on there. We just had one row that it didn't have it on there, and it was very noticeable on emergence. So we were trying to figure out what that was the whole time. But it's just that it's about a 6-inch extension that holds that seed when it comes out of the seeding tube, holds it to the bottom of the furrow, and then it was fine. Then the copperhead rows closed up that row very nicely. And as you can see, there's no openings around the corn plant here at all. Everything is uniformly covered up. So that was what our goal is. So there was some trial and error there, but that was a very important piece in which we're going to go look at a planter and see what they really are. So if we do the copperhead row, an amazing additive onto the planter, but we just want to make sure we have those extensions so that seed doesn't flop in the seed tube and the placement gets shallower than what you want.
Anything else you want to add?
Well, thanks for listening today, and thank you, Brian, for explaining this to all the folks listening today.